Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of C-SPAN. Now, I am at the Florida Aquarium's Center for Conservation in Apollo Beach, and we're going to talk today about all of the important coral conservation work the aquarium does. And thank you guys once again to CIBC, to our C-SPAN partner. I'm here today with Keri O'Neill, and she's our senior coral scientist, and she's going to tell us all about the important coral work the aquarium does.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in this morning. We're here at the Center for Conservation. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about all of the corals that we have here at our center and some of the projects that we're working on. So even in this time of quarantine and staying at home, we're still coming here every day to make sure that our little baby corals get consistent care and all the attention that they need to continue to grow and thrive and to hopefully be used to restore Florida's coral reefs in the near future. So in these bowls, we actually have two different types of brain coral. And these corals were born here at our center in 2019. So in this bowl here, we have the boulder brain coral, or Copophilia natans. And in this bowl over here, we have our grooved brain coral, or Diploria labyrinthiformis. Now, we have thousands of these young corals growing here, but you know, with all of these videos on Facebook now of aquariums taking their animals around to visit other animals when we don't have any public, we thought it would be fun to actually take some of these babies to meet their parents. So these babies were born last year, and they've been held separately from the adult corals that actually spawned them. So we're going to take the babies over to actually meet their parents and talk a little bit about their parents and why they're being housed here at the center. So here we go!
This is a pretty big field trip for these guys,
Yeah, it's a really big trip over here into the second greenhouse. So as you can see, in this tank here, the corals are much larger. So the corals in this bowl are, you know, maybe a fraction of an inch. But over here, we actually have much larger individuals. So here, this is Diploria labyrinthiformis. And this coral right here is actually one of the parents that spawned last May here in our greenhouse, and then these are your babies. So there's actually 5 parents in here. So this one could be the mom, or it could be the dad. So these corals actually are male and female, and they can fertilize each other. So this one might be your mom or might be your dad. And then our boulder brain coral, there's a couple of those in here. And they also had about 5 parents this year. So this one here is actually one of them with this beautiful green coloration. And this big one over here is another one. And same thing with this species, the male and female are together in one coral. And they release their gametes up into the water. And then these little larvae are formed. And they crawl around and they find just the perfect place to settle. And we actually settle them on these ceramic tiles. And then we keep them over in our baby rearing greenhouse where they're allowed to grow, and we clean them and we count them and we make sure that everything is going well in their development. And once they're big enough, we can actually return them to the ocean. So the corals that you see here in this tank are in this tank for a reason. And if you back up a little bit, you can see this sign here. So this actually says pre-invasion corals. Now what does that mean, pre-invasion? So corals on Florida's reefs are actually undergoing a problem that we're all unfortunately really familiar with now. They've been experiencing a disease outbreak for about 4 years. And this disease has spread throughout the Florida reef tract and has killed up to 90% of some species in its wake. So what the Florida Aquarium and now many other AZA aquarium facilities are doing is taking in these corals as part of a rescue project called the Florida Reef Tract Rescue Project. Working with FWC and NOAA, we have offered to give a safe harbor and a shelter from the disease here at our aquarium. So we have 13 different species of disease-affected corals here, and we are working on giving them a happy with here that are a little bit bigger. So you can see these species grow pretty slow. So these corals in this bowl are about a year old. So maybe in another year or so they'd be ready to go back out into the ocean. But in 2019, we also released about 3,000 individuals back out into the ocean already of a species that is not susceptible to this disease. So another species that we work with in partnership with the Coral Restoration Foundation, we collect the gametes or the eggs from these staghorn corals. Now these corals, believe it or not, this coral is about 3 years old. So this one grows really fast. You saw the tiny little babies over there. This coral actually used to be that small right here in our center. And this one we're keeping here so that we can monitor to see how long it will take this coral to actually start reproducing. We think that's going to be anywhere between about 4 and 7 years. Maybe this one will spawn this year, and it would be really exciting for us because we could actually make like a second generation. Just to put it in perspective how fast these guys grow. This one is about 2 years old now. So once they start to get branches, they really just grow exponentially. And this coral is great to use for restoration because you can actually just take a pair of pruning shears that you would use in your garden and just clip this branch off and then remount it to a new substrate. And you can just keep propagating and making more and more coral. So hopefully you can see in the video each one of these small little like knobs on there. Each one of those has a tiny little polyp inside of it. And that polyp is actually an animal. It looks like a little anemone with tentacles with a mouth in the middle. So this big coral structure is actually a group of thousands of individual little polyps. And each one of those can live on its own. So if we take this branch off, you still have, 100, 150 individuals on this little nubbin. We take that off, we can mount it, and it will continue to grow and form new coral. However, if that's the only way that you propagate coral, then they're all going to have the same genetic makeup, which leaves them susceptible to things like disease. If you have a susceptible individual and your whole reef is made up of that individual, then your whole reef is very susceptible to disease. So what we try to focus on here at the Center for Conservation is making more genetic individuals. So by breeding these corals, by reproducing these corals, and raising them here at our center, we hope to build a stronger reef in the future. The only way a species can adapt to a changing environment is by breeding, it's by reproduction, it's by making offspring. So if these corals can't do that successfully in the wild, then the best way to encourage them to adapt is to have a breeding program here for them on land. I'll be happy to answer any questions about anything you see here. Some of the other species we work with are our pillar corals. So this is pretty fun. These 6 very special individuals right here are actually about a year and 3-month-old pillar coral babies. Now, the pillar coral is really an interesting species because it's been really hard hit by this disease. The disease is called stony coral tissue loss disease, and it actually makes the tissue of the coral simply peel back and fall off, and it usually causes complete mortality in the individual. So the pillar coral, there are actually only 40 genetic individuals left in the state of Florida, and that number could be even less by now. And that's 40. That's not very many to be left in the population. So these 6 individuals here are actually offspring of pillar coral that were collected as part of this rescue project. Now these are about a year and 3 months old. Some of you may have seen our pillar coral spawning in the lab here last year. These are actually not from that. These are from the year before. These are from a wild spawn. But they actually have grown pretty fast, so we're pretty happy with this. We hope that these babies will now be able to go back into the reef within the next year. And interestingly, In areas where this disease has kind of blown through and is not highly present anymore, research is showing that we can start to take disease-susceptible species and put them back out onto the reef, and we're not causing like a big flare-up of the disease. So we will get through this, and we'll all get through this together. And we'll keep working on saving our reefs, and hopefully that we can have a healthy reef ecosystem in the future and a healthy Florida economy because of it.
So we have a question from Rebecca. They want to know how are they an animal? So can you talk about the plant-animal relationship between coral?
So it's a little bit easier to see on these pillar corals. Let me take this one right here as a really showing off how much he's an animal. So if you see how this is really almost jelly-like. They're tentacles. So you might be familiar with an anemone, like in Finding Nemo. So this is actually an animal that lives just on the outside of the skeleton. And let me see, I'm actually gonna go get, if we have a bit of time, Megan, I'm gonna go get a skeleton so we can tell the difference. We do Coral 101. Okay, so I like to call this lesson Coral 101. This is a skeleton of a pillar coral. And this is basically just calcium carbonate. It's really just a really pretty rock. And this is what forms our coral reef. This is heavy, very, very dense. But this is not a live coral. This is a live pillar coral. This is actually the same animal. So you see all the brown, fleshy part on the outside, that just lives on the outside. It's like a skin. And then inside is just rock. And that animal actually builds this rock. So that's how this animal builds a coral reef. It's just the skin on the top, and it lays down rock over thousands of years until you get this really large reef structure. And it's the reef structure that acts like the condominium for everything else that lives on our reef. Fish, lobsters, all kinds of different algae and invertebrates. It's home to thousands of species that all rely on these corals to basically build the condominium that they all live inside of. And once this animal dies, this is what you're left with. And then over time, this erodes. It gets broken down by sponges and algae, and it will actually just crumble eventually over time. And then you don't have a reef anymore, and then the animals don't have a home, they don't have anywhere to hide. So it's really important that this tissue on the outside, which is the animal, stays alive. So inside of all these little tentacles, there are lots of little mouths. So there's actually maybe 1,000 or 2,000 mouths just on this piece that I have. And we actually do feed these corals. So part of our routine here is we take little frozen shrimps and plankton, and we actually take a pipette and we feed, not every single mouth because they can share resources, but we feed each coral several times per week. So that is a big part of our job. We always joke that we have hundreds of thousands of mouths to feed, and it actually is true. And now we don't have our volunteers and interns here at the Center for Conservation right now, so we're joking that we, now just the staff has to feed hundreds of thousands of mouths. So we really miss our interns and volunteers during this time for sure, because they help us a lot with our feeding of these animals. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense. I think this coral is a good example of that fleshy animal tissue that lives on the outside.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the difference between the species. So we have the staghorn over here, which you mentioned grow really, really fast, and then the pillar, which grow actually pretty slow. So what are some of the advantages for a coral to grow fast, or why would a coral grow slow, things like that?
Sure, there's a lot of differences in the different species of coral. So a fast-growing coral, we call them like a weedy species. Something like a staghorn coral, it can occupy space very, very quickly. But ultimately, this skeleton is not very dense because it grows very quickly. It's building its skeleton. It's not very dense, so they're actually very susceptible to like hurricanes after it gets to a certain size, it tends to break and form these big patches of smaller individuals. Whereas something like a pillar coral has a really, really dense skeleton. And as I said before, that's why this takes so long to grow, because its skeleton is so dense. But this is like nature's seawall. When you have a pillar coral that's the size of a small car, it can withstand really, really heavy wave action, and it'll actually disperse that wave action before it can erode our beaches.
So there would be like different reasons, that some of these corals will grow fast and slow, just like different animals have different adaptations in the wild to do different things, right?
Exactly, and that's what makes our reefs so complex. A different type of fish is going to want to hide in these really intricate branches versus one that may just shelter in the shadow of a gigantic pillar coral. So the diversity of the types of corals really promotes the diversity of all the other animals that live amongst the corals on the reef.
So we have a question from Dottie. They want to know how many coral species there are in the world.
Oh, that's a good question. So the Atlantic is a little less diverse than the Pacific. So the Indo-Pacific has hundreds of coral species. I think it's upwards of 700. The Atlantic, and this depends on whether you're talking about hard corals or soft corals. So this is a loaded question though. If we're just talking about hard corals, there's about 40 species in the Atlantic, give or take, depending on whether they've changed their name this year or not. And many, many more than that in the Pacific. And then when you talk about hard and soft corals together, in the Atlantic, you're looking at maybe 120, 130 different species.
So Amanda wants to know, how cold is the water?
In this tank right now? Yeah, so right now the temperature in these tanks is about 74 to 75 degrees. And what we actually do here at the Center for Conservation is we cycle the water temperature in our tanks. A lot of the equipment that you see behind me in these greenhouses is all about maintaining the temperature. Corals are really particular to temperature, so you've probably heard about this with coral bleaching, and as our climate gets warmer, corals are bleaching more. So a lot of what we do here is regulate temperature very carefully to keep our corals happy and also to keep them reproducing. So even though coral spawns once a year, it takes a full year for that coral to develop eggs. So they actually need to know that it's winter time. So the temperature, we make the temperature a little bit colder in the winter, and then we raise it up just like it would happen in the wild in the summer. And that helps our corals know that it's time to spawn. We don't give the corals here like the most severe temperatures that they would get in the wild during a bleaching event. However, we have to also be very careful not to give them such perfect conditions that they can't survive when they go back in the ocean. So we balance that. We do give them hotter temperatures in the summer. However, we avoid those really high temperatures that would cause bleaching.
So Evie wants to know, are there girl corals and boy corals?
Good question. Also a very loaded question. Everything's a loaded question before. So in this species, in the pillar coral, there are girl corals and boy corals, but they can switch. So this one might be a boy this year and might be a girl next year. And in the staghorn coral over here, the boys and girls are all in the same colony. So it's a boy coral and a girl coral. Corals do lots of funny things, and like I said, there's so many different species, and each species is a little bit different. So I always joke that like our work here will never end because we study corals and their reproduction, and there's so much to learn about the different species, and there are so many species that need to be saved, that I feel like our work here is just critical to learn how to breed these corals, and even learning something as simple as our boys and girls in different corals. Some species, we didn't even know that before we started.
Yeah, I think people would be interested to know that, this one coral is not just one animal. There's a bunch of little corals within the colony, right?
Right. So if you look back at the staghorn coral, each one of these little bumps is actually one polyp. or one little anemone-like organism. And if you took a tiny, tiny tweezers and just snipped off that one little guy, it could actually live and reproduce and multiply and grow into a whole new colony. So when you ask, is it a boy or is it a girl, you're actually asking that question about this whole group of organisms. And there's thousands of them here. So this is why corals can break and still grow. You can't cut a human's arm off and grow a new human. But with a coral, you can actually do that. You can cut this branch off and grow a new coral.
Yeah, it's important to know that, corals breaking off are not necessarily a bad thing. Wave action can knock some of these branches off and then they can go off and create a new colony.
Yeah, and that is a very common way that corals can reproduce in the wild. And when your reefs are healthy and not covered in algae, this coral, when it breaks off, will find a new place to settle and attach. But what's happening in Florida now is our reefs are really getting very heavily covered in sediment and algae. So it becomes harder for little corals, baby corals, or small pieces of corals to successfully settle and grow. So in the beginning, we had those really, really small babies that are anywhere from 6 months to a year old right now. And those are actually much larger than they were when they started. When they first settle, they're big. And when your reef is covered in fleshy algae and sand, it's really hard for one of those tiny little larvae to find a place to settle and live. So another thing we work on here at our center is how do we also breed and reproduce these herbivores or the algae-eating organisms that we also need to make our reef more healthy. We can go look at the diadema.
And I have a question, Keri. How many corals do we have in the entire greenhouses? Do you know the number?
Yeah. So including the babies, we probably have right now about 3,500. Yeah. So it's a lot, but in our actual what we consider our rescue archive, these will be adult corals that will stay here and continue to reproduce and serve as parents for future offspring. We have about 400.
Yeah, and if you guys can see the greenhouse right now, all of these tanks are filled with corals. So we have an efficient use of space for all of these guys. And like Keri said, oh, check out this one. Yeah, these staghorns are awesome. I always say, like, Florida corals, we don't get all the pretty colors of the Indo-Pacific species, but I think Florida corals are still awesome and beautiful as well.
It's funny because some of our rescue species, we do get these really intense greens and blues, but you're right, they don't have as much intense color as Indo-Pacific corals, but they are still critically important to Florida and to the health of our economy and our travel industry and our tourism. So we will be here and continuing to work on keeping our corals healthy and continuing to rescue corals that are also being affected by disease out on our reefs and continuing to breed them to build a stronger reef for the future of Florida.
All right, guys, well, thank you so much for watching Friday's episode of C-SPAN. I hope you guys enjoyed learning all about the coral work we do at our Center for Conservation. We'll see you guys on Monday for Mondays with Matt, and he'll be drawing some awesome animals for you guys. So have your pen and pencils ready for drawing on Monday at 10 a.m.'s C-SPAN. And thank you guys once again to our C-SPAN sponsor, CIBC. We appreciate you guys and hope you're doing well at home, and have a great weekend.